The first time an HOA president tried to make me join the community, he didn't show up with a casserole, he showed up with a clipboard, a grin, and the kind of confidence you only get when you've never been told no in your entire adult life. 3 months later, he came back at 2 a.m. with 2 goons and tried to break into my house to seize assets. Yeah, welcome to suburban America, where the most dangerous gang sometimes wears khaki shorts and a laminated badge. So here's the setup. 3 years ago, I bought a small, older farmhouse on about 4 acres. Nothing fancy. A tired barn, a driveway that snakes through newer construction, a couple of big trees that look like they've seen wars come and go, the kind of place that makes you breathe a little slower the second you pull in. And the key detail, the one that matters more than the paint color on your shutters, or whether your trash can is visible from the street, my property was built in the late 70s, long before the suburban Legoland around it existed. 15 years ago, developers bought up all the surrounding farmland and slapped down a shiny HOA subdivision, cookie-cutter homes, matching mailboxes, the whole "we promise this is luxury" vibe. But the previous owner of my farmhouse refused to sell. He held out like a stubborn old oak tree in the middle of a parking lot, so they built around him. Which means when I bought it, my property became a legal island. My driveway cuts through their subdivision to reach the main road, sure, but my deed is independent. Separate. Not in their HOA boundaries. Never was. I triple-checked before signing. I even paid for an independent title search because I'm not new to the world. If a thing can become a problem later, it will. For the first 6 months, it was peaceful. I fixed up the barn, replaced rotting boards, drank coffee on the porch in the mornings, and enjoyed the fact that I didn't have neighbors close enough to hear my thoughts, let alone my dog. Then the neighborhood elected a new HOA president. I'm gonna call him Neil, because Napoleon feels too generous, and this guy was more like a middle management gremlin who'd finally found a tiny kingdom to rule. Neil was a retired corporate supervisor type, the kind of man who missed having subordinates to haunt. About 5 feet 5 inches of condensed entitlement, always walking like he had a meeting to start and someone else was already late. The first time we met, I was sanding old deck chairs on my porch. There's a big, bold "No trespassing" sign at the edge of my property. Neil walked right past it like it was inspirational decor. No hello, no handshake, no introduction. He just marched up and shoved a clipboard at me like he was serving legal papers. "We need your signature on the updated community guidelines," he said, crisp and proud. "Also, you're 3 months behind on dues. We'll waive the late fees as a welcoming gift, but you need to set up autopay." I actually laughed. Like an honest laugh, because it sounded like a joke, and for half a second I thought maybe this was some weird neighborhood prank. Then I saw his face. He wasn't joking. He was serious the way a toddler is serious when they tell you they own the moon. So I put the sanding block down, took a slow breath, and said, "I'm not in your HOA." He blinked at me like I'd spoken in ancient Latin. I pointed toward the boundary markers, explained the grandfathered deed, the title search, the whole thing calm, polite, factual. I even tried to be friendly about it, because I'm not looking to start wars with strangers. Neil's face went this alarming shade of purple, like his blood pressure was trying to exit his body. "Everyone in the neighborhood is in the HOA," he snapped. "It preserves property values. You use our roads. You benefit from our aesthetics. You will join, or we will lien your property." I said, "You don't have jurisdiction, and you're trespassing." He didn't move. So I picked up the crowbar I'd been using to pry up old nails from the chairs. Didn't wave it, didn't threaten him, just held it the way you hold a tool when you're done being polite. That's when he finally backed off, stomping down my steps and shouting over his shoulder, "You'll hear from our lawyers." I didn't hear from lawyers. I heard from the compliance committee. It started like spam mail, letters, notices, warnings. Fines for unapproved paint color. My house is white. Their palette required beige. Fines for a commercial vehicle in driveway, meaning my work truck. Fines for grass height in the back pasture, which, first of all, is not their business, and second of all, pasture grass does not care about Karen's Pinterest vision board. I threw them in the trash. I knew the law. They had zero authority over my land. They were basically sending me fan mail with invoice numbers. But then the harassment got creative. Neil hired a private security patrol for the neighborhood. Guys in tactical gear driving beat-up Ford Explorers with amber lights, acting like they were auditioning for a cop show that got canceled after 1 episode. They started parking at the end of my driveway late at night, shining spotlights through my living room windows at 11 p.m. just bathing my house in light like I was a suspect. I called the actual police. The officers came out, told the security guys to move along, and told me, with that tired expression cops get when they can already smell the paperwork, that it was a civil dispute. It happened again, and again. By the third call, the cops were annoyed with me, like I was the one spotlighting myself for fun. Neil escalated again, because of course he did. I had animal control show up one afternoon, because someone reported I was running a puppy mill. I have one dog. One. A German Shepherd mix with anxiety, and a habit of stealing socks like it's a full-time job. Then code enforcement showed up because someone reported unsafe structural modifications to my barn. I had permits. I had photos. I had receipts. I had the emotional exhaustion of someone who keeps getting dragged out of their own life because a tiny man with a clipboard can't handle being told no. The breaking point of that Cold War phase came on a normal day, right when I thought maybe it would finally burn out. I pulled into my driveway after work and saw a tow truck hooking up my work truck like it was abandoned on the side of the highway. I jumped out and asked the driver what the hell he thought he was doing. He shrugged and said, HOA ordered it removed as an abandoned vehicle. I stood there for a second, honestly stunned by the audacity, then I blocked the driveway with my other car and told him if he touched my truck again, I'd be calling state troopers for grand theft auto. That's when he showed me the work order. Signed by Neil. That night, I called a lawyer. We sent a cease and desist, certified mail, the whole formal dance, documented harassment, trespass warnings, and a very clear statement that any further encroachment would be treated as criminal trespass and interference with quiet enjoyment. Neil's response? A letter back full of legal gibberish, claiming some obscure statute, gave them authority to enforce rules on adjacent properties that negatively impacted community aesthetics. It was nonsense, but it told me something important. Neil didn't think he was wrong. He thought he was king. And I was the peasant who didn't know my place. Then came the night everything snapped. It was a Tuesday, around 2 a.m., the kind of dark where the house creaks a little and you can hear your own breathing. I was dead asleep when my dog went absolutely feral, barking, growling, backing up toward my bedroom door like he'd just seen something that made his instincts scream. I sat up, heart instantly pounding. Then I heard it, metal scraping metal, the unmistakable sound of someone messing with the sliding glass door near the back deck. I live alone. Out here, police response time is hopeful at best. I didn't start with hero thoughts. I started with the kind of thought that hits you like ice water. Someone is in my house or trying to be. I yelled, loud enough to shake the walls, get away from the door. I'm calling the cops. Usually that's enough. Burglars don't want noise. They want easy. Instead, a voice yelled back and my stomach dropped. It was Neil. Open up, he screamed. We're seizing assets to cover unpaid liens. We have authority. At 2 a.m. this man was screaming about liens like it was a hostage negotiation. Then came a sharp crash, glass shattering. Something hit the sliding door. The lock rattled, and the door started to slide. I backed into the hallway, shaking, furious, terrified, all at once, and I shouted, "Do not come in here." 3 figures stepped into my kitchen. They wore those HOA patrol windbreakers, the kind that look official if you squint, and they carried batons. One of them had bolt cutters. Neil was in front, clutching a heavy flashlight like a club. His face was shiny with sweat, eyes wild in the dim light like he'd been rehearsing this moment in his head for months. "You don't tell me what to do," he screamed. "I run this place." And he lunged. Here's the part people love to argue about later, what you should do in a moment like that. Everyone has a plan when they're sitting safe on their couch with a comment section and snacks. But at 2 a.m., when glass is on your floor and a man is charging you in your own home, your brain becomes very simple, very primal. I defended myself. I did what I had to do to stop the threat. Neil screamed and went down hard, clutching his hand, the flashlight clattering across the tile. The other 2 froze like somebody hit pause. I shouted, on the ground. Face down. Now. And here's the first twist. Those goons weren't even Neil's loyal attack dogs. They looked confused, terrified. One of them kept saying, "He told us there was a court order. He told us you were a squatter." Neil had lied to them, sold them a fantasy, dragged them into a felony with nothing but his confidence and a made-up story. I held them there, shaking, while I called 911 and told the dispatcher, through clenched teeth, that I had intruders inside my home and needed police now. When the cops arrived, it was chaos, flashlights, commands, hands on my shoulders. They cuffed me first, which I expected. Took statements. Secured the scene. Called an ambulance for Neil, who was screaming that I was a murderer, that I was defying authority, like he was auditioning for the role of victim of the year. I didn't say much until my lawyer arrived. Then we laid out everything, the harassment, the fake fines, the tow attempt, the trespassing history, and the fact that they broke glass to force entry at 2 a.m. while armed with clubs. The investigation didn't take long to swing in my favor. Because here's the second twist, the one Neil didn't expect. When the police dug into his liens, they weren't just invalid. They were fabricated. He'd been filing bogus paperwork, claiming legal rights he didn't have. And he'd even tried to produce documents that looked official until someone actually trained to spot fraud looked at them and went, "Yeah, no." Neil survived. He lost fingers. He got nerve damage. And after the hospital, he didn't go home. He went to jail. The HOA patrol company lost their license and folded almost overnight once it hit the news that their employees took part in a home invasion, because neighborhood enforcement doesn't cover smashing a door and storming someone's kitchen like you're raiding a cartel. The HOA board panicked, did what cowardly people always do when their little scheme catches fire. They tried to distance themselves. Emergency meeting. Sudden resignation. New election. A lot of we had no idea, which is hilarious, because they'd been cashing checks under the same leadership while he terrorized me. I sued. The security company settled fast. Quiet money, quick signatures, anything to avoid a public circus. The HOA folded into a trembling mess of attorneys and insurance calls. And the payout I got paid off my mortgage, and then some. 6 months after the incident, the neighborhood got real respectful real quick. No more spotlights. No more letters. No more clipboard king strolling onto my porch like he owns my oxygen. And that's the part that stuck with me. The lesson I didn't want to learn but probably needed to. Power doesn't always look like a badge or a courtroom. Sometimes it looks like a guy with a laminated title and a group of people too scared, too lazy, or too complicit to tell him to stop. And the longer nobody challenges it, the more it grows until one night it decides it can break your door and call it policy. People love to say, "It's just an HOA," like it's a joke, like it's petty. But petty power is still power, and petty people are sometimes the most dangerous, because they're not chasing justice, they're chasing control. Now here's what I want to know, because I still think about it sometimes when the house is quiet and the wind hits the barn just right. When someone abuses authority long enough, and the system moves too slow, where's the line between self-defense and revenge, and who gets to decide after the fact? Drop your take in the comments. Was what I did pure survival, or did Neil's long campaign of harassment make it inevitable that this was how it ended? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA, a neighbor, a boss, anybody who tried to rule your life with paper and ego, tell your story too, because I swear, the more people talk about this stuff, the harder it is for the next Neil to grow into a king.